Good morning, children. How are you all today? Hope you all are fine. Today, we will be reading a lesson on a very famous person whose name was Sinbad the Sailor. His name was Sinbad and he was a sailor. Do you all know who's a sailor? A sailor is a person who goes on trips on the boats in deep seas. So, Sinbad was a sailor who used to go on very long trips on his boat. And all his trips are collected in storybooks which are called The Adventures of Sinbad the Sailor. Now let's read something about Sinbad. So children, let us now read who was Sinbad. The story of Sinbad and his 7 fantastic voyages appears in the huge collection of stories, the Book of 1001 Nights or the Arabian Nights. So children, Sinbad, as I told you, was a sailor. Sailor is a person who goes sailing in his boat in the seas. He used to go on long trips which we call voyages. So voyages means when you take your boat and have a long journey by sea. All these stories of Sinbad and his voyages on the sea are collected in these books. The Book of 1001 Nights or the Arabian Nights. Now let's read ahead. The story tells us that Sinbad was a famous sailor who lived in Baghdad. He was honest, generous, and brave. He had many adventures on each of his voyages. He never lost heart and hope in dangerous situations. He overcame great dangers and returned home safely from each of his voyages. Here's the story of his first voyage. So children, from which place was Sinbad? He was from a place called Baghdad, which is in a country called Iraq. He was a very honest person. He was very generous. Generous means he loved giving things to others. And he was brave. He had many adventures on each voyage that he took. Though these adventures were dangerous, he never gave up. He always fought and came back home. So children, can you tell me who was Sinbad? Sinbad was a famous sailor who lived in Baghdad. And what were his qualities, children? He was honest, generous, and brave. These were his 3 qualities. Now that you know who was Sinbad, are you ready to read the story of his first voyage? So let's begin reading. You can read along with me, children. The first voyage. So that means this was his first journey on the sea. Sinbad set sail with a company of merchants on a big ship. From time to time, they stopped at various ports. There, they sold their merchandise and bought new things to trade. Merchants means a company which does trade with other people. Trade means buying and selling of goods. So what do merchants do, children? They help in buying and selling with other people of other countries. Port is a small town where the ships load or unload their things. So that means it is a place where the things from the ship will be brought down or new things will be put on the ship. Merchandise are the things that are bought or sold. So children, on his first voyage, Sinbad went on his ship with a company of merchants. So there were many people on that ship along with Sinbad. And they had many goods too on those ships. Goods are things that had to be given to other people. So at each time they stopped at different places and they unloaded those goods at different ports. They also brought new things on their ship which they could trade with other people. So this was a long voyage where they kept many stops at many ports and kept on doing their work of trading. That is, buying and selling things. Can you tell me, children, with whom did Sinbad set sail on his first voyage? Yes, Sinbad set sail with a company of merchants on his first voyage. Now let's read what happens on this voyage. One day, when their ship was sailing smoothly across the sea, they spotted a small island at a distance. They had not seen land for many days and felt both surprised and happy to see the island. They sailed close to the island. The captain of the ship allowed them to go there for a picnic. Everyone was excited. On the island, they strolled around, sang, and danced. Some people began to wash clothes. Some lit fires to cook meals. So children, island is a land surrounded by water from all sides. So mostly it is found in the middle of a sea. Look at the first picture of the island. Can you see? It's a small piece of land. But all around the land, what do you see? There is water. So, when Sinbad was sailing along with the other people on the ship, suddenly they saw this small island. They were sailing for so many days. So when they saw land, they were so happy and excited. They decided to go close to the island. And the captain of the ship, the person who sails the ship, he told everyone, now that there is a land close by, I'm going to allow all of y'all to have a small picnic and enjoy yourselves. So everybody was so happy. When they reached on that island and got off the ship, some of them went for a walk. Some of them sang songs and danced. Some washed their clothes in the water. And some of them cooked food. They were all enjoying themselves. Now let's see what happens next. Soon a breeze sprang up. The fires began to blaze. Suddenly, the land began to shake and move. With a shock, the picnic party realized that the island was not an island at all. They were on the back of a huge sea monster, and it had started moving. People began to scream. They left their pots and pans, their clothes, both washed and unwashed, and rushed back to the ship. The captain ordered his men to set sail immediately in order to move away from the monster. Sprang up means began to blow suddenly, and blaze means to burn strongly. So children, as all the people on the ship were enjoying themselves on the island, suddenly they felt a strong breeze blowing and the fire started to burn very strongly. They felt the island was shaking and moving. And at that time they realized that it was not an island at all. It was the back of a huge sea monster. Can you all look at the picture? The first one looks like an island. But actually when you see the second picture, it was a huge sea monster who was inside the water and only the back could be seen. So, when the people were dancing and lighting fire, the monster woke up and he started moving. People got very scared. They started screaming. They left all their things over there and started running towards the ship. The captain immediately told his men to get on the ship and start sailing and move away from this dangerous monster. So children, can you tell me, where did the people on the ship go for a picnic to? They went on an island. What did the people do on the island? They strolled around, sang, danced, washed their clothes, and cooked their food. What was the island actually? The island actually was the back of a huge sea monster. Isn't this story so exciting? Now let's see if the people got saved from this monster. The sea monster plunged deep into the sea. Many of the people managed to climb aboard the ship, but many sank into the sea with the so-called island. Sinbad alone did not drown in the sea, but he could not reach the ship. He saw it sailing far, far away. He was now at the mercy of the waves, being tossed here and there. He clung to a piece of wood and somehow managed to keep afloat. He spent the night alone at sea. So, children, plunged means to jump in the water or dive quickly. So, as you can see in the picture, this big sea monster woke up and suddenly dived deep into the sea. Many people managed to climb up back on the ship, but many people sank into the sea, means they drowned in the sea. Sinbad alone did not drown. He was still alive, but he could not manage to reach the ship. The ship had already sailed and gone far away. Sinbad was now lying in this deep sea on a piece of wood. He was holding on tight on this piece of wood, and the waves were throwing him here and there. Somehow, he was managing to float with this piece of wood. He spent the whole night alone in the sea. Now let's read the next paragraph. When the next day dawned, Sinbad was happy to see that he had floated near an island, a real big island. He could see hills and woods and trees at a distance. Though he was extremely tired, he swam to the shore with all the strength that he could muster. Exhausted and hungry, he lay on the sand for some time. Then again he made an effort and began to walk inland towards the shady fruit trees that he could see at a distance. Dawn means the start of the day, early in the morning when the sun shines. So, when it was morning again and Sinbad woke up, he realized that he was on a real island. There were hills, trees, and forests on that island. He was very, very tired because he had swam from the sea to reach the island. He was also very hungry, so he was lying down on the sand on that island, as you can see in the picture. Once he was ready, he decided to walk into the island and look around. Now let's see what happens next. Luckily, this was the time when the king of that island sent his horses to the seashore with the grooms. The grooms saw Sinbad and gave him food and drink. Then they took him to the king. The king was impressed by the way Sinbad told him about what had happened. He asked Sinbad to stay with him and work as an officer of the king at the port. So children, grooms were the people who used to take care of the horses. Impressed means very happy. So when Sinbad went walking on that island, he seen the grooms along with their horses. When these grooms saw Sinbad, They gave him food to eat and water to drink. Then they took him to the king of the island. The king asked Sinbad how he had reached the island. Sinbad told the king all about his adventure and how he reached the island. The king was very happy to hear how brave Sinbad was, and he asked Sinbad to stay with him on that island. He also gave him a job to work as an officer of the king at the port of that island. Let's read the next paragraph. Sinbad stayed there for a few days, learning a lot from the king and the people on the island, and in turn telling them about the other cities and ports that he had visited. At the port, Sinbad often made enquiries about any ships coming from or going to Baghdad. But no such ship ever came to that port. So children, when the king allowed Sinbad to stay there and also gave him a job, Sinbad agreed to it. He started working at the port. He learnt a lot of things from the king and the people on that island. He also enjoyed telling the people stories about his adventures. Since he was working at the port, there were many ships coming in and going out. But there was never a ship that was coming or going to Baghdad. That was the place where he was from. He kept asking people if any ship was going to or coming from Baghdad. But the answer was always no. Then one day, a ship arrived at the island with a lot of merchandise. Sinbad was at the quay when the cargo from that ship was being unloaded. He was surprised to see that his own name was marked on some of the boxes. Then he went to see the captain of the ship. At first, the captain could not believe that it was the same Sinbad that they had seen drowning in the sea. But when Sinbad spoke to him face to face, he recognized him. He was overjoyed to see Sinbad alive. He gave him back all his merchandise. So children, merchandise, as I told you, are the goods that are sold or bought. Quay is the platform or the place on the port where the boats load and unload their goods. Cargo are the goods that are carried. Unload means removed from the ship. Overjoyed means very happy. So many days went by and Sinbad kept doing his job as the officer at the port. One day, a ship came to that island with a lot of goods on the ship. At that time, Sinbad was at the port. When the people were removing the goods from the ship and bringing them to the port, he noticed that some of the boxes had his name on them. So he was eager to know whose ship it was. He went on the ship and met the captain. It was the same captain who was on the ship during Sinbad's first voyage. The captain was so happy to see Sinbad again. They had all thought that Sinbad had drowned in the sea. Sinbad was happy to see the captain too. The captain then gave all Sinbad's merchandise back to him. From the goods that he thus got back, Sinbad presented the most valuable items to the king of the island, saying, "Please accept this, your majesty. You have been very kind and very generous to me." The king was pleased. He too gave Sinbad many valuable gifts when Sinbad left the island with the merchant ship. If you want to know what happened to Sinbad afterwards, you have to read the rest of the story of his fantastic voyages. Valuable means very expensive, costing a lot of money. So children, the captain of the ship gave Sinbad back all his merchandise and goods. Sinbad was very generous, as we all know. So he decided to give some of those valuable goods to the king because the king was so helpful and nice to Sinbad. The king too was very happy with Sinbad. So he also gave him some valuable things when Sinbad decided to leave the island. So this was Sinbad's first voyage. Now once he left the island on the merchant ship, he went for many much voyages, and all those voyages were filled with danger and adventure. If you want to know what happened next, you have to read the stories from his book. I hope you all enjoyed this adventure lesson on Sinbad. Now let's answer the questions to the lesson. The first question says, use the letters in the following words to make new and meaningful words. At least 5 each. At least 5 each means you have to make 5 words or more. The first word is merchandise. So what you have to do, children, is you have to use the letters in the word merchandise and make different new smaller words. So in merchandise, the words that I have made are reach, die, hard, hide, ride, made. If you find any more words, you could try making newer ones. The next word is immediately. The 5 words I made are media, diet, ate, Italy, met. The third word is exhausted. The 5 new words are hat, had, dust, sat, eat, shut. And the last word is valuable. The new words formed are value, bell, ball, blue, bull. Children, You can try and see if you can come up with new words other than these. The next question says, from the lesson, find and list all the words that begin with the letter S and the letter I. So if you read and search through the lesson, with the letter S we have Sinbad, 7, sailor, sea. And with the letter I, island, inland, in and it. The next question says, imagine what the people there might have said on the following occasions. Occasion means at that point of time when something is happening. Write it down. You may write it in 1 or 2 lines, or you may write a long speech if you like. So children, here they are giving you different situations or events that have happened in this lesson. And you have to guess what the people must have spoken when that happened. You have to write your own sentences. They can be short sentences or it could be a long speech too. Let me give you some examples. The first sentence or situation is, people on the ship saw a small island at a distance. So what would that people say? They have seen an island, so they are excited. So this is what they could say. Hooray! An island! Now, finally we can be on land. We can eat, walk, dance and cook our own food. So you see children, how I am speaking on behalf of those people, thinking of how they must have spoken when they seen the island. You can try making your own sentences in this way. The second occasion is, the island began to shake and move. So what would the people say? Run, run everyone, save your lives. Looks like it's an earthquake. Earthquake is when the earth shakes. So maybe if they had not realized that it was a sea monster, they could have thought that it was an earthquake. So they are asking everyone to run away. You can think in your own way. The third occasion is, some people managed to climb aboard the ship. So what are those people going to speak? Start sailing the ship fast. Let's all escape from this island. Thank God we escaped. The fourth occasion, the groom saw Sinbad on the shore. So when they seen him, the grooms must have said, hello there. Do you need any help? Are you lost? The fifth occasion, the captain of the ship recognized Sinbad. So what will the captain say? Oh my God, you made it alive. I am so happy to see you again. The last one, Sinbad said goodbye to the king. So how will he say goodbye? Goodbye, Your Majesty. Thank you for all the help you have given me. It was a pleasure staying in your kingdom and being with your people. So children, please use your minds and write down your own speeches of people in all these situations. Try doing this on your own. The next question. Write at least 1 or 2 lines about the following with the help of the story. The first is Sinbad. So 3 lines about Sinbad are: Sinbad was a brave and adventurous sailor. He went for many voyages and always succeeded. He lived in Baghdad. The second is the sea monster. The sea monster was huge. Most of its body was underwater. When it felt the people on its back, it plunged into the sea. And the third person is the king of the island. The king of the island was kind and generous. When Sinbad had no place to go to, he asked him to stay and also gave him a job. He gave Sinbad many valuable gifts when he left the island. That was all in this lesson, children. I hope you all enjoyed today's adventure story on Sinbad. Do read more stories on Sinbad and his voyages. You'll enjoy reading his stories. Thank you, children, and have a nice day.